Well, first of all, thanks for having me back on.
You
And
bet.
this is a branding thing because there's really nothing about this that's new, and there's very little green. So this is too cute by half. It's a big red deal. There's just an awful lot of socialism in this. But like a lot of things environmentalists do, when you say to do it in the name of the planet, climate change, it gives you license to push basically Marxism down the throats of the American people. And that's what this Green New Deal is.
So specifically, how does it go about doing that?
Well, she has this radical idea of paying for it, and the price tag is close to $7 trillion by, of course, raising taxes on everybody. But she says just on the rich. But she'll raise taxes on everybody. And the goal is, according to her, to rid ourselves of fossil fuels within the next 10 years and to have a zero carbon footprint by the year 2030. It's not serious because it's not feasible. It's a nonsensical proposal put together by an intellectual lightweight, quite honestly.
Well, and frankly, I wish some of the reporters who cover this stuff, if anybody else came out and said, we need to get rid of X, if they said, we need to rid America of rats, I'm sure somebody would probably find a reason we need to have rats for some biological reason. But most people would nod and say, you're right, we need to get rid of rats. But if you say we need to get rid of fossil fuels, doesn't anybody ever ask this young lady why? We're sitting on a gold mine of fossil fuels right now. They serve our society very well. And if you worry, what are we going to do when we run out in 100 years? I think there probably were people who had the same concerns back in the days of whale oil, which was a major supplier of energy in North America. If they'd said that, what are we going to do when we run out of whale oil? Well, we're going to stop taking whales and we'll start using something else. And America and human beings are endlessly inventive. They find lots of solutions and replacements for things we're running short of.
Exactly. And our fossil fuels, especially America, which is blessed to have an abundance of them, people like Ms. Ocasio-Cortez try to paint this picture that our fossil fuel use is somehow selfish or it's somehow hurting the planet. But what does our fossil fuel use do? Doesn't it cure diseases? Haven't we eradicated poverty in America? We've eradicated most diseases like polio. Measles is making a comeback because of stupidity, not because of science. Our fossil fuels has kept us alive longer. It's allowed patients with cancer to live longer and mothers to die less from childbirth, right? Our fossil fuels has given us a wonderful quality of life that we should be proud of, but yet people like her just look at it with disdain because they are short-sighted and they don't celebrate America the way you and I do.
Well, and I guess then there's the practical side of it. Even if you accept that we should get away from oil, which I don't accept that right on its face because nobody's made the case for it, the question is, what do you want to replace it with? Because right now, a third, not quite a third, about 30% of our electric grid is made up of coal. We don't use as much in terms of liquid fuels for generating electricity, but we use a lot of natural gas that comes sometimes as a consequence of drilling for oil. So what are they going to replace it with, and how do you maintain the current kind of society that we have today where energy is relatively cheap and people are able to easily heat their homes, power their businesses, and that sort of thing? How do they propose to replace this?
Exactly, and they're talking about replacing it with renewables. The previous president, subsidized green energy to the literally trillions of dollars. At the beginning of his administration, our electric grid was made up about 17% by renewables. After 8 years of Obama and his war on coal and his subsidies, our electric grid is made up of about 17% of renewables. So the technology has not caught up, and it's not from a lack of investment or a lack of trying. And fossil fuels as power is just one component. What about petrochemicals? What about plastics and insulation and carbon fiber bicycles and car parts, right? Her smartphone is a petrochemical. So when she says we're going to get rid of fossil fuels, well, how are we going to replace the literally millions of products in the marketplace that we depend on that are made of fossil fuels? And she has no answer for that because, again, she's an intellectual lightweight.
Yeah, because I just, you would think that she would, that there would be folks who would say, if you're going to roll out these ideas, and she's rolled out literally ideas that could cost the country trillions of dollars. I'm not exaggerating, because between Medicare for all and the new Green Deal at $7 trillion, we're talking about amounts of money that are multiples of what the current cost of running the federal government is for a year. And I don't for the life of me understand how she's going to diminish the economy by cutting off the cheap energy that fuels the American economy, and then have the money left to pay for all these other crazy schemes.
Exactly. And she said short-sighted things like, well, we're going to have to become more reliable on electric vehicles because they are somehow green, without any understanding that the actual materials of an electric vehicle are forged with coal, right? That's how you make steel. That's how you bend it and shape it, is with coal. The actual lithium-ion batteries require an awful lot of rare earths that are mined. And an electric car does plug into a grid, which right now runs on either coal or natural gas. So this idea that saying, well, if we all drive a Chevy Volt, we'll be green, again, it falls short of intellectual rigor. And that's what the Green New Deal is. It is not a serious proposal, but it is being taken seriously, and it is threatening to our economy and our way of life.
I'm talking to Daniel Turner, who's president of Power the Future. So let me try a conspiracy theory on you. Is it possible that the rest of the Democrat Party, as loony as some of their ideas is, are looking at Ocasio-Cortez saying, we can't actually let Americans take a serious look at what we're proposing in some of the things we want to get done. So if we let AOC stand out there and make all these crazy plans and announce all these crazy schemes, we're going to chew up the public's attention. They'll be looking at her instead of looking at us. Like the magician wants you to be looking at the hand that he's not concealing something in, to be distracted from the hand where he's hiding the coin.
I think there are other proposals. There is a national a carbon tax proposal that has quote-unquote bipartisan support that I think you're absolutely right. That's what's going to then be seen as the conciliatory tone, where the Green New Deal is way too controversial. But what about this carbon tax? And then gullible Republicans will be suckered into something which also is bad for the economy and is not necessary and is not solving a problem. So I think your theory has a lot of merit to it.
Well, we'll see how it goes. Daniel, keep up the great work at Power of the Future. We always appreciate your insights.
Always. Thanks, Lars.